does Metroid hold up today? I mean, Super Metroid's one of the greatest games of all time, but what about the original? Let's go way back and see if it holds up today or if it's a pile of junk. What's up, nerds? I'm Longy Long, the Ghetto Gamer. Every week I'll go scout out some cool old games to help you build your collection without going broke. If that sounds helpful, be sure to subscribe so you'll see when I put out new stuff. Metroid for the NES is a legendary game with a long and enduring legacy. Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo is considered to be one of the very best games for that console, and the series itself is up there with Zelda and Mario in the pantheon of Nintendo franchises. And it all started with this ugly gray rectangle. Actually, it started with a yellow floppy disk for the Famicom DiskSystem. But after that, Gore Rectangular! So is it still good? We're gonna have to fire this beast up and find out. Well, the music definitely holds up. I've always really liked Metroid's music. It really drives home the isolation and the bleakness of being all alone on a hostile alien world. The first time I played Metroid, I got bored. I mean, I was probably like 6 or 7 at the time, and this game is definitely targeted to more mature players. And it's interesting because when this was in development, arcades were still really popular, and most console games were just arcade ports. That meant that most action games were designed to be played in short bursts with temporary power-ups and boosts that would help you just long enough to convince you to spend one more quarter. By contrast, Metroid takes a much more methodical approach. It's designed specifically for home consoles, and developers knew that gamers playing Metroid would be comfortable on their couches, drinking Ecto Cooler, and eating Crunch-A-Bungas with a pause button at their disposal. Metroid can get intense for sure, but there's no feeling that they're trying to rush you or kill you to drop one more quarter. Nintendo realized the benefit of creating a narrative experience rather than another frantic arcade-style quarter gobbler. Most players will not finish this game in their first sitting. I mean, it's possible, and it happens, but it kind of defeats the purpose. The point of this game is to explore and find new weapons and new goodies and hidden stuff, and for its time, the game world is really huge. As I mentioned, this game was originally released in Japan in 1986 for the Famicom DiskSystem, and Metroid was an ideal choice for that system because it had an onboard hard drive that allowed players to save their games arbitrarily, and this is the kind of game where you want to save a lot. It was ported onto the ubiquitous gray cartridges for the US the following year and in Europe in 1988. Without the disk system's hard drive, Nintendo opted for a password system instead. The reception was good. Players had never seen a game that blended platforming and adventuring quite this way before. The gameplay focuses on exploring and uncovering new items that allow you to access new parts of the map. Technically, the entire planet is open and accessible right from the start of the game, you just can't reach certain areas without the right tools. This was pretty innovative, and it expanded the scope of the game by forcing players to backtrack to previously unreachable areas. Here's how it works. You progress through the map till you get to an area you can't access, whether a certain kind of door, too high of a ledge, or whatever. And since you can't go any further that way, turn around and go back and explore a different direction. Once you find something like jump boots or a freeze gun that makes you go, oh yeah, I can reach that ledge now, then you turn around and go back to the unreachable area and explore a new part of the map. And if you get lost along the way, it's a great time to grind for energy or hunt for secrets. It's extremely satisfying when you find a certain power-up that suddenly grants you access to a whole area of the map you couldn't reach before. But it's also a pain in the butt when you backtrack to open some mystery door and there's nothing there but a missile or something stupid. When Metroid was in development, auto-mapping wasn't really a thing. I had a habit of mapping out games like this on graph paper because I hate getting lost and backtracking frustrates me. But if you had Nintendo Power, it was pencils down. Oh man, they didn't map the whole game for you, but they sure gave you a good head start. Look at that. Oh yeah. Another cool thing about Metroid is the multiple endings. Depending on your completion time, you get a slightly different ending. Basically, the faster you finish the game, the more clothing Samus takes off. Can we talk about that? Back in 1987, people that played this game just assumed that the suited-up protagonist was a dude. You had to finish the game to actually discover Samus as a girl, and this is kind of a big deal because you just didn't see that many female protagonists in video games back then. Not to get too soapboxy on this, but it seems like by rewarding players with a progressively more undressed Samus, you're totally undercutting any kind of social commentary you're making by featuring an empowered woman as the hero of the game. I mean, maybe, I don't know, I've never heard anyone else talk about this, so maybe I'm just, I don't know. I don't know. Feminism aside, Metroid really is a great NES title. It's ambitious than a mug. The sprawling open world seems to go on forever. The controls are tight, the weapons are cool, and it really is satisfying when you unlock some new stuff. Like so many great NES games, Metroid hinted at the potential of what gaming would become, and years later, the 16-bit Super Metroid blew everyone's brain mind out of their head holes. With improved graphics, a much larger world, and even more polished controls and gameplay, and oh yeah, an auto-mapping system.
Ship it! Super Metroid, only on the Super NES.
Metroid's playstyle has since inspired an entire genre of games, the Metroidvania. In making this video, I tried to form an opinion on whether Metroid or Castlevania are more responsible for the genre, but both Nintendo and Konami seem to take turns growing it. Maybe I'll make a video about that one day, it's pretty interesting. Metroid was pretty popular, and it sold around 3 million copies, so there's quite a few laying around. There's actually two versions, the silver original version, and there's a yellow version too that was kind of a Nintendo Greatest Hits re-release that came out later. Either version should cost you 20 to 25 bucks, which is a little high for what I usually recommend as a ghetto gamer, but it's Metroid and it's a great game, and I recommend you watch 5 or 6 more of my videos and then go out and get a copy. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe so you can see when I make new content, and check me out on indiewatch.net so you can see all my new articles. I recently hit 200 subscribers, so a big thank you to everybody that's been watching and subscribing. If you're not already subscribed, you should join. It's so fun. It's so fun. It's the best! Can I come back here? How's this? Should I stand at a third? All right. All right. Woo! Today's episode is brought to you by my nipples.